It's all quiet now. I guess that means it's about time to start, but not yet. This is working okay? Can you hear me all right? All right, just one more minute. Watching out for me out there.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for being here for this breakout session. We're going to go ahead and get started. Just to introduce myself, I'm Jason King. I'm a senior here at Utah State, studying operations management and business. And it is my privilege to introduce Jerry Benson as our next speaker. Jerry Benson is currently serving as the interim president and CEO of Utah Transit Authority, or UTA. Previous to that, he's been the vice president of operations for UTA. UTA is the American Public Transportation Association Outstanding Public Transit Agency for 2014 and has been an industry leader in applying principles and tools for operational excellence and continuous improvement in public service industry. Jerry's PhD research focused on participation and trust in organizations. He received the APTA Innovation Award for UTA's novel approach to collaborative labor relations and the International Association of Business Communicators Award for Best Scholar Practitioner Research. Jerry is adjunct instructor as well at the University of Utah in public administration. He serves on several nonprofit boards and consults with nonprofit and public agencies on creating high-performance organizations. Please join with me in welcoming Jerry Benson.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Good morning. And appreciate the help with my jacket, those who pointed that out. So I'm really happy to be here with you today, and I'm happy to see a group of friends from UTA here with me as well. So I will say that participating with the Utah State University and the Shingo Institute has been a really important part of our continuous learning at Utah Transit Authority, and I think we've made such strides in the last really 3 or 4 years, in large part because of events like this. And so it's an honor for me to be up here now looking at you instead of the other way around. And I think I have some things to share with you about our enterprise excellence journey. And what I wanted to focus on today is this idea of humanizing excellence. So you're probably wondering what that's about and how this session fits in with the Shingo model and with some of the other things that you're going to learn about in this conference. So to start off, I want to ask you to think about yourself and how much of yourself you brought to work today. Was it 80%, 90%, 10%? Think about your physical self. I didn't get as much sleep as I wanted to last night. Didn't have time for breakfast because I drove up here. So I'm not 100% physical. What about our intellectual selves? How much of that did you bring to work today? Or how much of it are you bringing to this session? Are you thinking about who to start in your fantasy football league tonight? Are you thinking about what you're going to do after work? Are you worried about your family? And I'm not suggesting that we're one-dimensional and we only do one thing at a time, because that doesn't make us smart. But a lot of times we decide to only bring part of us to work every day. What about our social selves? Our ability to interact with other people in an authentic and genuine way. What about our emotional selves? Our ability to utilize the depth and strength of our emotions throughout the workday, to be able to utilize our emotional part of our physiology to aid our intelligence and to aid our social skills. So how much of that do we bring to work every day? And how much of each of those dimensions did you bring to work each day? You'll notice I left off sexual because I didn't know what to say about that. Maybe that's one you probably don't want to bring 100% of to work every day. But we don't always bring all of ourselves to work every day. And so what Humanizing Excellence, in my mind, is about is creating a workplace where people can bring all of themselves and the best of themselves to work most of the time. Maybe not 100% of the time, but most of the time. So we can kind of get an understanding of what we mean by all of ourselves, or 100%. But what about the best of ourselves? So when are you the best of yourself? Is it when you're with certain people? I would say yes to that. There are certain people who help me be the best of myself. Is it when I'm doing certain things? That's probably true. I think I'm the best of myself when I'm working with other people. I think I'm the best of myself when I'm thinking about other people and thinking about how to help them accomplish their work. I'm fortunate to have a spouse who helps me be the better self most of the time, helps me think about our impact on other people. So do we bring the best of ourselves to work? Or do we sometimes say, you know what, I'm kind of a jerk at work, but I have to be. I have to be because I have a jerky boss, or I have to be because the job requires it, or I have to be because that's the nature of the work. So that's what I mean by humanizing excellence. And I think in those ideas of bringing all of ourselves to work and bringing the best of ourselves to work are some keys to intelligence in organizations, some keys to innovation, and some keys to continuous improvement. And that's what enterprise excellence is all about. So a little bit about Utah Transit Authority. It's old news to the UTA folks who are here. But we are a large, multi-municipal public transit agency. We serve 6 counties in the state of Utah. Cache County is not one of them. We have about 2,400 employees. Our service area covers about 1,500 square miles. We operate bus, light rail, commuter rail, van pools, paratransit service for people with disabilities. We build and manage trails, bike trails. We work with municipalities on all kinds of things like bike lanes and bike sharing systems and access to transit stops, transit-oriented development. So we have a lot of things in our portfolio. We have a long history I'll talk about in just a minute. But it's a broad, multimodal, and multi-jurisdictional organization. We're a special district under the laws of the state of Utah. And a special district is a type of public service. We're owned by the citizens of the state of Utah. But a special district allows a public service to cross over municipal or other government boundaries. And so think about a sewer district or a water district can provide service to 3 or 4 cities or a whole county. Well, we provide service across 85 cities and 6 counties. So we have lots of people who think they're our bosses, and they are. It's the local elected officials in all of the cities we provide service. We're funded through sales tax that is approved by the voters in each region, and that's a local sales tax. So we really are accountable to local governments and have a broad set of stakeholders. Those stakeholders appoint members to our board of trustees. So we're accountable to the taxpayers by way of their elected officials appointing members to our board. So it's important to keep that in mind because it's not like a private business where we have maybe a handful of owners or a single owner or a handful of shareholders who are represented by a board of directors. We have lots and lots of stakeholders who do have a right to influence the direction that we take. Complicates our work a little bit, and a lot of times it feels like, for those of us who work in the agency, like we have lots of kind of competing goals and directions. So we are a results-oriented organization and have been for a long, long time. I've worked for UTA for 31 years. I'm now doing my 7th job in the time I've been there. And ever since I first started at UTA, it was very clear this is an organization that's focused on producing results. And a couple of things we care about is how many people we carry, and that shows up on our passenger boardings chart. And this is 99 to 2014. And we're at all-time high levels of ridership last year, and we will again this year. Another thing we care about a lot is on-time performance. And you can see we made big strides in improving our on-time performance of our bus system. Starting in 2006, we were at about 62%, and now we're up in the mid-90%. And we're at a level that we would consider world-class. There are very few transit agencies who are able to meet this level of on-time performance, dealing with all the things you deal with in a bus system with traffic and construction and so forth. We've got lots of process improvements, so we have been involved in organized, formalized quality improvement for a long time, and we've been involved with Lean and the Shingo model for 4 years now. So we've got lots of things that employees have helped us improve. Here's one where this curve here that's circled is a curve in downtown Salt Lake City, and the building that's at the top of this picture are condos. And for some reason, this particular curve likes to get noisy at certain times of the year. So when the weather turns cold and there's a little moisture, this thing makes the most god-awful screech you could imagine. And of course, it's loudest at about midnight. And that's because everything else quiets down and the people in these condos are trying to sleep, and this horrible screeching noise appears at 11:30 midnight. Something we'd worked on, this curve was put in 2008. We've been working on it ever since then. And we brought in experts and engineers, and it was really our employees who said, it's going to take several things to make this work. So one, we have to clean these tracks periodically because the gunk that accumulates, because it's a busy street, the gunk that accumulates interferes with our lubrication. And then they helped us identify a different kind of lubricant. We actually have little devices that squirt lubricant onto the rails. And then the other thing the employees helped us figure out is what kind of speed we needed to operate around that corner to keep the noise down. So that's a good example of a solution that all of our technical people, because they're kind of operating within their discipline, they couldn't solve it. But once we involved employees, we came up with a solution, and I'm confident that this winter, when it turns really cold, this curve is not going to be noisy. We've got great customer service in our organization, and we have employees who go above and beyond, who go out of their way to help our customers have a good trip and have a good day. One of the slogans I like to share with people is, if we're doing our job really well, we give people the best part of their day. And I got that from someone waiting on a train platform at 7:30 in the morning. I was going to work, and this person, they were in scrubs. They were coming home from work at the Intermountain Medical Center. They'd worked all night, and they were saying to their friend there, this is the best part of my day, to get on the train, put in my earbuds, relax, know that I'm going to get where I'm going, and I don't have to worry about it. So if we do our jobs well, we give people the best part of their day. And it's especially true for the people we serve who have disabilities. A lot of people we serve, we are the only connection they have with the outside world, outside of the internet, things like that. We are what allows them to either work or go to school. And in fact, when we started our service for people with disabilities, within the first month, there were 700 people who, for the first time in their whole life, had been able to have a job or go to school, because prior to that they were prevented from doing so because of transportation barriers. So we have a lot of good things going, and here's a list of accomplishments. You didn't think this was going to be a commercial for UTA, and it's not. But I want to start by saying we're building from a point of strength. So I think it's a good organization trying to get better. So we're the multiple award winner of the Outstanding Transit System. We've been ISO certified, triple certified in quality, environmental, and safety. We've been ISO certified for over 10 years. We've been recognized multiple times as a good community participant, helping create the kind of place people like to live. Those of you who are CFOs will appreciate this Government Finance Officer's Distinguished Budget Award. Doesn't sound like a big deal to the rest of us, but it is. We made improvements in our service quality, things like our service interruptions. We are 5 times better than we were just 5 years ago. And I can go through the rest of this list. Safety, customer service, employee availability. We're at the top of the heap. And when we started learning about the Shingo model and implementing lean, one of the things we did is we went and visited Shingo winning companies. And how many of you had a chance to do that? Have you been on a tour? Did it change what you thought about what an excellent company was? Well, it did for me too. You know, we went and toured some of these companies, and we're so lucky in Utah to be this hotbed of enterprise excellence because of the Shingo Institute and because of the manufacturing base that we have here. But you know, with Autoliv and OC Tanner, Barnes Aerospace, US Synthetics, for example, they're pretty accessible. Well, I remember going to one of these tours and having the associates in this organization talk about their process improvement and how they worked on continuous improvement in their organization. And I said, well, this is not how it is in our place. We've got good employees, and like I said, we achieve lots of things, but it's not like this. So there was something different in these organizations that we didn't have. And I think you can be world class without being Shingo class. And Shingo class is another level. And one of the things that I noticed that really differentiated those organizations is that they are achieving results. We achieved results, but they're achieving results through employee-driven continuous improvement. And that's something that I'm really focused on, and I think the people here are really focused on, is making that part of how we do our business. But we have some challenges in doing that, and I'm going to share those challenges with you and then share with you some of the things we've done to overcome those challenges. So let me share with you 3 stories of process improvement. And these are real stories at UTA. So I'm going to start with manager-led improvements. And Alicia Garrett will know about some of these. I'm going to start with one that I'll call a manager-led improvement. And so a lot of our results have come about through manager-led process improvements. So the manager comes in and says, hey, over the weekend I was thinking about things and I thought there's a way we can improve our work, and here it is. And so one of the manager-led improvements that was actually a really good one had to do with parts expenditure. So one of our business unit maintenance managers recognized that parts is one of his biggest cost drivers, and that the technicians have a lot to do and can influence our parts utilization. They can troubleshoot effectively, right, Ricky, and you know, really understand what's going on with the part, or they can you know, swap a part out and then see if it works. You know, the cost of that part's not coming out of their pocket. So this manager said, we're going to really focus on parts expenditures, and we're going to set a daily parts goal, parts expense goal, and we're going to track everything by employee, and we're going to have supervisor review of things. So, you know, it was a good idea, and in fact, he achieved a 37% reduction in parts cost over the course of about a year. So that was great. And so what's going to have to happen for the next process improvement? That manager is going to have to think of something over the weekend and come in and tell everybody what it is and then make them do it. And we have lots of results in our organization that have been produced through that kind of thing. And there's nothing wrong with that. But it's not world class, and it certainly is not Shingo class, and it's not what we saw when we visited some of the Shingo Prize winners. So let me talk about another type of process improvement, and this is something we have a lot of experience with, and it's something I had a chance to do my dissertation research about. So this is an approach of bringing people together, cross-functional teams, to work on big systemic problems in the organization. And we did a lot of this over a period of several years. We identified, we had a guidance team, we'd identify the biggest challenges and opportunities for our organization, and then put task teams to work on it. And they had people from all across the organization. And they were great. People got excited about it. They said, you know, for the first time, people are listening to me. For the first time, we're going to solve this problem in a way that makes a difference for me and where I live. And it's not just about management's perspective or management's view of the problem. It's how it works for us. So those were great experiences. Now, what I found in my research on these cross-functional task teams is that we created an environment for people to bring all of themselves and the good part of themselves to work. They worked collaboratively. They had a high level of commitment to the team, and these were really effective. But what happened when they went back to work in their regular job? For a lot of these people, not only did they kind of go back to a narrow view of what their work was, and maybe not a very happy view of their relationship with the company generally, but for a lot of folks, they were even more dissatisfied when they went back to their regular work because there was a big contrast between their level of engagement and the way they were listened to in these teams and the way they were listened to on their job. So we were able to solve some problems really effectively, but it wasn't what I would call an embedded cultural approach to continuous improvement. So there's nothing wrong with doing these, but I think we had hoped that they would have been transformational, that employees would have had that experience and they would have seen, okay, my job is now this big, where I used to look at it this way. That didn't happen. They weren't transformational. They saw their job broadly while they were in that process, and then they went back to seeing their job more narrowly. So the third example is a story of going into a maintenance shop to do Gemba and see the employees and see what work was being done. And this time, rather than the manager wanting to tell me what he had done to improve things, the manager said, you know, the technicians want to talk to you. They'll show you what they've been doing. And one of the technicians, on his own, had come up with a way to improve his work process. So he was doing HVAC, heating, ventilation, air conditioning service on a bus. So the HVAC unit on a bus, because it's a rolling conference room, if you will, it has to be able to heat and cool things and move moisture out of the air really effectively. These are kind of high-powered units. And so in doing this service, part of what they do is they drain the refrigerant, flush the refrigerant out, and then recharge the system. That takes a lot of time. And this employee said, you know, if you would just give me some lights outside my work bay, I could back a bus in and then have a bus inside the bay, and I could do 2 buses at once. Could you get me some lights? And the supervisor said, oh yeah, I think we could work that out. And it, you know, maybe $200 or $300 worth of lights, this person doubled his productivity. Now the difference between that, and that's the kind of thing we saw when we visited the Shingo companies. The difference between that and the other ones is this employee came up with the idea. This employee found a way to make his work, frankly, easier and simpler. Employees don't like to sit around. So you would be surprised. I mean, sometimes you need to sit down and have a rest. I don't have a problem with that. But it's frustrating for employees to have to wait for things. It's frustrating for employees to have to go back and forth, to fill out forms multiple times. And so the question that we asked in the first case of the manager-led improvements, you know, we might have asked for employee input around those things, but the question would have been something like, how can you help the company save money by being more efficient in your work? And the question that is asked here is, what bothers you about your work? What gets in the way of you being able to do your job well? What's really an annoyance or a frustration for you doing the workday? And so are there ways we can eliminate those frustrations? And it turns out, and a lot of you know this really well, I know, but it turns out that by eliminating those annoyances and those frustrations, we usually are making work safer, more efficient, more productive, and have a better, more consistent quality outcome. So we've been achieving results as an organization really well, and we haven't cracked the code completely on how to make this part of what everyone does every day. And that's where we are as an organization. What we're working on is cracking that code. And so what the Shingo model would say about this is, yes, you can achieve results, but if you want sustained results and consistent results, you've got to have results that are produced by behavior that is being driven by your organizational systems and the culture of the organization. The behavior that a manager-led initiative produces is the same kind of behavior, but it's coming from a system of, I will tell you what to do and you'll follow through and do it. The behavior that we saw in some of the Shingo Prize-winning companies is behavior that came from a system that enabled employees to come up with their own ways to make their work simpler and better. So some of the challenges for us in our organization to make this happen are that we're quite diverse. So I know when we went and looked at some of the Shingo Prize winners, we noticed that in a lot of cases, organizations apply for the prize at the plant level. So it's these 300 people that are in these 3 buildings. Pretty much everybody knows everybody else. If you want to have a meeting, you can get everybody together. Well, we're not like that. We have lots of different disparate business lines. So we have streetcar and light rail systems. We have a fixed route bus service. We have paratransit service for people with disabilities. We operate some of that ourselves. We also contract with a private for-profit company to do that service. We contract with another private nonprofit company to do some of that service. We also contract with a county to do some of this service for us. We have over 400 van pools that operate throughout the region, and we do things like bike sharing programs. We have a commuter rail line, and each of these businesses has a different operating approach and different technology and different oversight. For example, the Federal Railroad Administration has oversight over this, but they don't have oversight over anything else. We also have a line of business that its objective is to facilitate the coordination of other transportation providers who do transportation as part of some kind of human service program. And so we try to get all of those human service agencies to pool resources and pool information so that they can be more efficient. So they're very different kinds of businesses. We're spread out geographically, so we can't get everybody into a room. We're about 100 miles from our Mount Ogden division to our Timpanogos division, and then we're spread out across about 10 miles within Salt Lake County. So what does that mean for how the organization works? Well, this picture is a map of our communication in the organization. So this is several years ago, but we did a communication network study. And the way this works is you ask everybody in the company, you give them a list of every other employee in the company, and you ask them to note, who do I know, and then do I talk to them, and how many minutes a week, and do I talk about work or do I talk about social things? And then you take all that, feed it into a computer program, and it gives you, this is called a crack plot, and it gives you a map of your communication network. And the arrows mean I talk to you. If it's a one-way arrow, it means that you don't report talking to me, so that's kind of interesting. What you see here is, you see this department right here? They talk to everybody, but nobody talks to them. That's kind of sad. But it's not as sad as this one, right? So there are challenges for us. I'll tell you a little bit about who these are. So this is our paratransit service, our special services. So nobody talks to them, and they don't talk to anybody else. They're an island. They do their own thing, and they're very unique. They provide service for a specialty population. This group was our bus operation. So at least they had one connection, and it's a one-way connection. But guess who this one is? This is the labor union. It's not even part of the organization. So when we did this network study, the only people who reported regular communication with our bus operators were the union reps. And it didn't go this way. So it's a challenge for us. Our employees, I'm going to skip to this one. Our employees report to work at lots of different times during the day. We have about 4,300 bus trips that are made a day. We have about 5,000 trips a day made on bus and rail. And so what this chart shows is each of these little blue diamonds is when they come to work, and then the corresponding X over here is when they get off, when they're done with that piece of work. And not too many straight 8-hour shifts in there. We have a lot of people who will do one of these pieces, and then they'll come back several hours later and do one of these pieces. So when do you have a meeting with these folks? Even if you want to see them when they report to work, you got to show up here and spend until about here to catch a lot of people. So we have a challenge in just kind of seeing our folks and communicating with them. So another challenge we have is that we have a long history, and I show this photo because this photo is actually 3 years after the labor union that we work with was organized. So we're working with a union organization that goes back to 1904 and was organized because of issues like 16-hour work days, child labor, no safety rules. So there's this history of abusive business owners and the union kind of being there to stand up for folks. That was a long time ago. But that culture and that history of, we need to be here to protect you from, the evil, transit barons or whatever, that is still part of our history. If we think about how culture is created, remember I showed you that slide, the behaviors produced by culture and systems. If you think about how culture is created and sustained, one of the most powerful drivers of culture are the stories that are told in the organization about the organization. And we have some stories. We have some stories that go clear back to these days, but we have stories that go back to the mid-1970s. And we have other stories that go back to the 1990s. I was in one of our shops about 3 weeks ago, and one of the mechanics was saying, "Do you remember when?" And he told me the story. I'm not going to relate it because I won't repeat bad stories. And I said, the person that you're talking about left UTA in 1992, and you still tell that story, and you tell it to people who come to work here. And that's not who we are today. That person's been gone since 1992, and yet that story persists. All right, so what are we going to do? We care about creating a workplace, a high-performing organization, where people bring all of themselves and the best of themselves to work. We've got lots of structural and institutional and historical challenges. How are we going to address it? So I'm going to share with you a couple things we've done that I think have started to crack this nut. So some of the systems that we focus on are our systems for employee input and employee participation and process improvement. Our systems of communication, recognition, and development. We think that by focusing on those systems, we can start to create this kind of organization. And then culture is equally important. So if we're going to create an organization that achieves its results through employee-driven continuous improvement, we have to have a culture that enables that. And some of the drivers of culture that I think are most important in this regard are our leadership, our values, the stories we tell, and the daily experience that people have. And I'll say some more about each of these things as I go through. So in the Shingo model, there are these things called cultural enablers, right? And it was one of the things that was most appealing to me when we started learning about and trying to apply the Shingo model on top of what we were doing with lean process improvement tools. Because this idea of leading with humility and treating each other with respect is foundational. If we really want to have people engaged in process improvement, then they have to care. And they will only care if they feel cared about and respected. People are willing to give a lot of themselves, but they won't do it if they try and they're rebuffed. They won't do it if they don't feel like they're an equal partner or being treated fairly. So we saw that in the Shingo model, and that was really appealing to us. But understanding a concept of humility is very different from being humble. Understanding a concept of respect is very different from being respectful. It's almost like understanding the concept of falling in love and actually falling in love. Because these ideas are not behaviors, they're ways of being. And so part of what we had to learn, and it took a long time, we had been working with the Shingo model for a couple of years. And one of the tools that helped us get some more insight into this was some of the books and materials from the Arbinger Institute, and some of you are probably familiar with them. But they have a series of materials that kind of help you understand what it means to be this way, what it means to live as a humble and respectful person, and then how we can work that into a workplace. So we can do lots of things, but if we're serious about creating a culture of employee-driven continuous improvement, it matters a lot who we are as a person and how we view others in the workplace and in our lives. And it matters a lot how our leadership team lives this and how they demonstrate it in their daily activities and how they communicate it through the organization. So what are some things that we've done that I think have been effective? One of the things we've done is we have tried to create one simple, one-page summary of our values and our approach to work, and we call it the UTA way. This was a significant change for us because we had lots of experience of bringing people into the organization to do training, bringing experts in. We learned so much from these folks. But frankly, our employees, our managers and supervisors get confused. And they think, oh, it's flavor of the month. They don't see this as building blocks of knowledge and building blocks of skill and practice that they can add. They say, oh, you mean we're not doing quality anymore? We're doing lean? You mean we're not doing cost control anymore? We're doing Shingo? We're not doing ISO? Well, it's all the same stuff. And in fact, they're building blocks for us to establish a foundation on and then move forward and get better. So our UTA Way document includes this is what we do, provide an integrated system of innovative, accessible, efficient public transportation that increase access to opportunities, contribute to a healthy environment for the people of the Wasatch region. We already had this, it's our vision statement. It encompasses who we do this for, who benefits from our work. So it's our coworkers, our customers, and the community. The people who don't ride transit benefit from transit. They benefit from having a community that's shaped a certain way. They benefit from having better air quality. They benefit from having less congested roads. So we serve a whole community, not just our customers. The UTA Way encompasses how. And so you'll see lots of the Shingo model in these questions. And you'll also see some of the Arbinger ideas. Am I treating others with respect and consideration? Am I helping others to achieve their objectives? Am I following established best practices? Am I proactively solving problems at the source? Am I continuously improving my process? Am I creating value for the customer, community, and fellow employees? Am I tracking my results and verifying my success? Every employee in every job at every level can use this as a guide to approach their work. Every supervisor and manager can use this as a guide for them to know whether they're creating the work environment that enables people to answer yes to all these questions. And then lastly, the reason we do all of these things is to achieve results. We care about lots of results, but especially safety, fiscal responsibility, a great place for all of us to work in, and great value for our customers. We have a unified sense of purpose that all this serves, which is to create a better quality of life for our community, our customers, and our coworkers. And the reason it's me in the center is not because we want people to think about how we can create their better quality of life, but it's because we want people to think about they're responsible for making this happen. And if you go see Amir Ganad next, he'll talk about this a little bit, how we can be the ones who step up and make this happen. So another thing that's been helpful for us is to really focus on training. When we have such a hard time having contact with our employees, every opportunity to have a face-to-face is a critical it's a critical opportunity. It's so valuable. So we can't afford to waste any of those training opportunities with things that confuse people. So some of the systems that are supported by training are our communication and development systems. Some of the cultural drivers that are supported by training are training gives us a chance to repeat stories. Training gives us a chance to demonstrate the kind of leadership that we want to have in our organization. So we restructured and reorganized our training. A lot of our training we relabeled. So maybe it was a coaching training, and now we call it supporting the UTA way, so that we drive those common values and common principles in everything we do. So it's not coaching that's, okay, something else that you do. Coaching is how you support and sustain the UTA way. As I mentioned, our training opportunities are a critical place for us to interact as leaders. We just don't have very many opportunities to see our employees. To bring our employees together who are bus operators, it takes several meetings. We, a few months ago, brought the Salt Lake bus operators together. We did 2 meetings on Sunday, and we covered maybe half, Cheryl? Like we were still, even with that, only able to get half of our people together on a Sunday, and so we have to catch up with everyone else. We run 7 days a week, about 23 hours a day on most of our modes, so it's hard to get people together. We run a kind of service that you can't not run, right? We can't just say, all right, everybody, no UTA service this Tuesday because we're having a big meeting. So we've got to take advantage of every one of these training opportunities that we do have to reinforce our values, and as much as possible, put myself or put the other, the regional general managers or the other executive leaders face to face with employees. That is an important cultural driver. For them to look me in the eye and say, can I believe him? What does he care about? Is he walking the talk? Are we going to be this kind of organization in the future? Videos are a nice way for us to tell the story. And my time is, I'm not going to show all this, but I'm going to show a little bit of it here. And let's see if it'll just start. Nope, it won't start. What I like about using videos is it lets employees see their peers in a certain setting. And so here's one that we've used.
I drove all the way up there with a part that was bad, and it was just maddening. When a customer walks up to one of our machines, they expect it to work. They expect it to accept their money or credit card because they're just trying to get somewhere. And this is something that we don't want it to be an obstacle in their day, miss out on an appointment, be late to work because something on our end failed to work for them. Yeah, we want to keep that stuff working. We want to keep it working good for them. so that they can get to where they need to go. My name's Brian, and I'm a maintenance of way supervisor, and I oversee the maintenance and repairs of the ticket machines.
So creating a culture of collaboration and a culture of continuous improvement. We want to work well together. We want to have a positive environment. But the reason we want to do that is because we want to produce results that matter to our customers and matter to the communities that we serve.
I was troubleshooting up in Roy.
So I'm going to stop that there and just kind of tell you the rest of the story. So he came up with a great idea that eliminated a lot of back and forth trips for him and for his technicians. And the point of sharing that video with you is videos are a powerful way to start telling a new set of stories in the organization. People see their peers there, and you see we cut back and forth to me in some of these videos to connect their story with the UTA way and the philosophy of our organization. And when people see these videos, they say, oh, well, I know him. He's an ordinary guy. I thought maybe he'd be here today, but he's not. I would have had him stand up, take a bow. He's an ordinary guy. And, well, that's simple what he did. I could do that. And that's exactly what we want. We want people to recognize that continuous improvement is not some big, complicated, technical endeavor. It's about bringing the brain part of yourself to work and thinking about what you do and thinking about how you make it easier and better. So another technique that we've used, and this is something I actually had in the works, but I didn't get it launched until after I became appointed the interim general manager. So they were going to be vice president of operations videos, but they turned into interim general manager videos. But the idea here is, you know, we have about 1,500 operating employees, operators, mechanics. These are people who are dispersed out across the organization. And so this is a way for me to have a face-to-face with them. And initially I was skeptical about this, but talking with other folks at conferences like this who've really had some success in connecting with distributed employees, I learned some things and then have been able to try them here. And what I learned is that videos can be effective if it's the right message. So the message has to be really catered to who you're talking to. So this is me talking to you, operator, you know, train operator, you train host, about issues that you're probably interested in. And then the second thing that makes a video effective is inviting people to have a two-way interaction. And I was worried about this because in the video I invite people to call and email me. And with 2,400 employees, some of whom are not happy about everything, I was worried about that, but thought it was worth the try. And when I do these videos, I get about maybe 10 messages. And so part of that is to make sure that I have a personal answer to every one of those 10. So now we've had a personal interaction. And everybody who watched it feels like I'm talking to them because I am. And those who reach out now have a connection. And it turned out to be really fun. The kinds of things people asked about, and a lot of the comments I got were just, hey, thanks, you know, please do this again. So we pushed this out through our internal email system. I was just amazed. Within 20 minutes, 400 people had watched the first video in our organization. All right, another idea that I think has been helpful for us to create this organization where we have employee-driven continuous improvement is to focus our information and improvement on the line workers. So one of the things we did early on is we wanted to institute visual workplace or workplace visuals. And so everybody knew they had to do workplace visuals, and within a few months I could go out into the operating units and I could see all kinds of just beautiful charts and graphs. And what was on those charts and graphs were things that were kind of interesting to me, like how we were performing against our monthly targets and how we were doing against our service standards and so on. And then when I go ask employees who worked in that area, you know, hey, tell me about this chart. What do you think they said? It doesn't, I don't know. I don't know what it is. We never look at that. That's for you. So one of the lessons learned here is our workplace visuals, and a lot of you know this already, I know. They have to speak to the work that people are doing in the time frame that they influence things, and it has to be in terms that are relevant to them. And so instead of having fancy visual displays and video screens, we found that whiteboards, where people actually put the data up themselves and can update it every single day, are so much more effective. So for these folks, knowing how many part supplies they use a day, that's relevant to them. How many miles their vehicles went without a service interruption that day, that's relevant to them. And then their miles between maintenance calls, they can track against their goal. So it's daily information. They populate the data, and it tells them how they're doing. Similarly, having employees focus on how their work gets done and how they can improve it, it was an important change for us. We want to get to the point where continuous improvement is part of everyone's daily experience. What you're looking at here is a brake pit in one of our maintenance garages, and I want you to notice how pretty and shiny and clean it is. It impressed me a lot. All right, so one of our groups that's most challenging to get engaged in continuous improvement are our operators, our bus and train operators, because they're out there in the system. We have 4,300 trips a day. We may have 8 or 10 or 12 different operators run the same piece of work, so it has to be consistent. We've made a promise to the public about where things are going to go and what time they're going to be there, so we can't have everybody just freestyling all the time. And our employees are out there in the system, so it's hard for them to give us input. So here's what we've done, and I think we're on a continuum here, and this is where I think we want to get to. So we started with really our professionals, and some of them are in here today, the experts who do work design, job design for operators. They came up with all the solutions. Then we came up with written suggestion systems, and those have been pretty good. We supplemented our written suggestion system with a nice feedback, so you could have, operators could go to a board and see what happened to my idea, and who was it who said my idea was a bad one. We then added in-person feedback. So Bob, who's sitting in the back row, he shows up at 4 o'clock in the morning when we have a service change to sit down with the employees and talk to them about their ideas for service improvement. So we're getting better. Then we've added to that a team. So we put together a team of operators that come in and review ideas for service improvement. So they're reviewing their peers' comments and suggestions. So that's pretty good. Now, this year, we've gone another step, which is to create a blended job, if you will, which is an operator who part of their day or part of their work week includes working on suggestions from other operators and deciding which ones make sense and which ones will be most effective. What we want to get to is daily integration for everybody. So every operator is contributing to process improvement every day. And then lastly, we want to get to a place where all of our operators really feel like they own the entire process of service delivery. So if there's a problem with that sign, if there's a problem with the information on our automated telephone information, if there's a problem with the vehicle, they feel like they own that whole process. Those are ideas. We're not there yet, but that's the direction we want to get to. So recognition is another thing we found that's helpful to build this culture of employee-driven continuous improvement. I won't spend a lot of time on that, except to say, as long as it's sincere and it's related to an achievement that they created, and especially if I show up, it's effective. We don't have to necessarily have big cash prizes. These guys here did just an amazing piece of work to improve our vehicle reliability on the road, and they were really happy to get this little plaque that I created. I didn't think we were ready for the Shingo Prize, so I created a Shingle Prize. It's made out of roofing shingles. It's a rotating award. and you get to sign the back of it. So in a year's time, 12 folks will win it. So you can kind of see these are shingles in the shape of a house. And people love to get it and compete to get it. So some lessons for me to summarize. I think that breakthrough performance comes from humanizing systems and culture. And what I mean by humanizing is creating a work environment where people are able to bring all of themselves and the best of themselves to work every day. The best knowledge about process improvement is everywhere. So I was speaking to a group a couple months ago, and I was talking about this idea of employee-driven process improvement, and I said, you know, that's important because the best ideas about our service on the street live in the drivers who are doing it. And a woman in the audience said, Jerry, that's ridiculous. Because the best ideas are everywhere. There's no one brain that is perfect and all-knowing. The point of enterprise excellence is that 2,400 brains are always going to be better than any one. So the best knowledge is everywhere. Humility, respect, and collaboration arise from who we are, not just what we do. Efficiency, safety, and quality come from making work easier for people a lot of times. And then lastly, humanizing is possible when you have a foundation of constancy of purpose, fairness, performance information, and alignment. And I don't have time to share all of that, but the point I would make there is if we just focus on the human element and we don't have a clear, unified sense of purpose, we don't have clear information about how we're doing, then the engagement of our people is a little hard to direct. People don't know what they're supposed to be focused on. So this humanizing, for us, we're at a place, I feel, as an organization where we've got the foundation of high performance, good performance information, unity of purpose. And so now we can really focus on humanizing our workforce to make those results. Okay, I think I got through most of what I wanted to. So we have time for just a couple questions. Yeah. Yes?
The question I have for you is about your 3 stories of process improvement, the manager-led improvements, the cross-functional task teams, and employee-led improvements. You hire managers for a reason. Managers have specific skill sets. What do you do? What's the UTA way of dealing with an idea that a manager comes up with over the weekend? I mean, it's just going to happen. That's what managers do. So they bring this new idea. Do you allow him to implement it, or do you suggest that he takes that to not necessarily a task-led team, but an employee-led? I'm just trying to figure out what to do with that new idea that he just has based on the new UTA way.
So that's a really great question. I mean, we don't want to say to managers, you know, you can't come up with good ideas and implement them. But if the manager is doing it in a way that is respectful and humble, and in a way that is also trying to build capability of the workforce for them to come up with similar ideas, what I would hope is that that manager brings the idea and engages with the workforce in a way that they can think about it and they can say, yeah, I think that's a good idea. Or it may be the employees say, well, that's a pretty good idea, but if you implement it in this way, then we'll all really be on board, as opposed to, you know, the way you deploy it. So that would be my recommendation. Absolutely, bring that idea in, but engage with people in a way that kind of helps develop their own capability too. Thanks, that's a good question.
We are just about out of time for this session, so we'd invite you guys, if you have some questions, to get with Jerry at our networking luncheon. Right now, we'd like to present Jerry with a gift. Thank him for coming to speak with us. Can we just give him a round of applause real quick? Thanks, Jerry.
All right, thanks everybody.
And just a reminder for you guys to